Hi folks, it's Lynn here with the Swirlydoos Education team, and I'm very excited about this tutorial this week. It was quite the rabbit trail getting here, and it actually all came about because of the mini snowflake template by Crafters Workshop that came in this month's technique kit. Now, prior to receiving that kit, I started making my own templates because I wanted to try some techniques with the black gesso that was in the kit. And so I cut out this template here using my favorite flourish die by Sizzix, which I'm very sorry peeps, but it has been discontinued. And this very cool piece of frosted plastic that had been sent to me by Zutter. And so I cut that out and I tried it on a tag, and it created this very cool stencil in which I used on the tag. And then on the boards we got to talking, and we got to talking about beeswax, and we got to talking about a couple different things. And so I had a play day in which I really had no assignments that I had to do, so I decided to pull out my beeswax and play. And here you will see this is what I came up with that day. You can see the flourish from there on a piece of canvas, and this was the card that I made. I had created a similar batik project using the sewing room die, and actually the way that I made my template that time was I cut it out of just a piece of cardboard, chipboard. And I use that as the template for my batik. Now, templates or stencils for your creations can be found anywhere. I just went out and dug through my stash and found these wonderful pieces of chipboard by Maya Road, which would be just fabby to be used as a template. And you may even find that this one fits right perfectly with that one. And that is actually how I achieved this look here on this batik tag. So kind of think outside the box. It doesn't have to be something that you purchased. It can actually just be something that's in your stash that you can use and just have a grand old time. So to create the stencil that I used to make this card, basically what I did was I took my favorite discontinued flourish die by Sizzix, placed it in my Big Shot, cut a piece of the frosted plastic so that it would fit, placed it on my die, and just ran it through my Big Shot. Okay, so I'm actually going to cut this twice on this piece of fabby plastic. I will just run it through a second time. And then we'll pop these little pieces out. And if they get stuck, just use your scissors and kind of cut into them to release them. So not only are you going to have this really cool stencil, you are also going to have these clear flourishes that you can use for something else. It's always an additional use for everything. All right, so I have my melting pot here, and I am using white beeswax. There's natural beeswax or white beeswax. I just happen to have a jug of the white. It is in the melting pot in one of the trays. Set at about 146 degrees, somewhere around in there, and it's all nice and melted. I have my heart, my canvas heart that was cut from Canvas Corp Canvas. So when I'm working with beeswax, I like to work on a miscellaneous piece of scrap because beeswax is very sticky. Whatever it sticks to, whatever it gets on, it sticks to, and it can be a little difficult to remove. So here I have my stencil that I created, and I'm just going to place that over top of my piece of canvas heart. Melt the wax here off my brush. And I'm not using any particular brush. This is actually a Perfect Pearls brush that I have, which I have to be careful because you can lose the little fibers from it. And I just take it and I dab it into the open spaces on the stencil. Now if it bleeds through, once again, we're not going to panic. It's all part of the artistic batik effect that you're going to get. Okay, now that all of the holes are all filled into my liking, I'm just going to peel the piece of canvas off of here. And I don't know if you probably can't see this in the video, but now I have this nice outline of that beautiful flourish. Okay, and I am using Adirondack Color Wash. I prefer to use Color Wash when I'm working with fabrics, just because of the intensity that it just goes into the fabric. It works the best. If you don't have that, well, you could probably use Distress Reinker mixtures or anything else, but this is what I prefer to use. So I'm going to give it a couple spritzes, and this one that I'm using is red pepper. Then I'm also going to use a bit of the raisin because the red to me is just a little too strong. Okay. I'm going to kind of dab it on just a piece of cloth that I have here. Okay, so I've placed my canvas heart onto an old piece of paper bag. You can use newsprint, anything that's going to kind of soak up the wax. And I went and bought a really high-tech, handy-dandy, newfangled iron from Walmart for $9.26, and that's what I'm going to use to iron the wax off of this. I know that there are a lot of really cool, cute irons out on the market, but this is what I have. So I'm just going to take the iron and place it over top. And keep moving it around until all of the wax is melted. And most of the wax has been removed. So now to kind of make sure that I'm happy with it, I'm going to take my heat tool and just hit it one last time with some heat. And that'll also help to dry the color wash. And there you have it, your little batik heart. Okay, so I created my heart, and then as I went to compile my card, I wanted to put some flowers on it. And as you can see, this white flower against this very antique-y batiked background, or even these velvet flowers, just didn't quite look right. And so in my head I said, well, what would happen if I dip them in wax? So that's what I did. I took this velvety flower by Petaloo, and I just dipped it in wax. Shaking off the excess, and it so totally changed the entire look of that flower. So now when it's up against the heart, it just looks better. So then part of what I did was, because you can either leave it this way with all of the wax on top of it, or you can just use your heat tool and just kind of infuse that wax down into that fabric and get off some of that excess so that some of the more purer colors of the flowers show up. Once again, I'm doing this on my paper bag because I don't care if I get wax on that. right, so something else that I have is this white flower. Now when I'm looking at something, I don't look at it as that's how I have to use it. I look at it as, how could I get this to work on my project? So as you can see, that flower like that is just a little bit overwhelming. So I'm just actually going to rip this Color Me Crazy flower apart. And I'm going to get the size that I want to be able to use. And that's perfect like that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some Stormy Sky Distress Stain. I'm going to put a little bit of stain down here. Spritz my flower with a little bit of water because that just helps it take color just a little bit better. And I'm going to dip the ends of my flower into the blue Stormy Sky. Until I'm happy with how I want my flower looking. Okay, and I'm pretty happy with that. So now I'm going to dry it. Alright, now that my flower is totally dry, because we don't want to be dipping a wet flower into hot wax, because the two do not like. Okay, and I'm just going to dip this flower in wax until it's saturated. And I'll place it on my piece of throwaway paper bag, and we'll go through the same process that we went through with these flowers over here, drying and shaping until I have exactly what I want. And we'll just kind of let that sit there and set up. One of my other very, very favorite tools to use is my Distress It All. Now let me tell you what, this thing rips it up. And you can sit there with the little Distress It tool and go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on your card, but nothing tears like this. Are you ready for this beauty? Oh, amazingness. Now you have to be careful doing it along the fold of your card because you can cut all the way through just as I did. All right, and I don't like to pull any of these little tendrils off that it creates. Maybe just trim them down a little bit, but I love this whole torn up look. Okay, so this is a piece of craft resist paper that I cut into the card. So I'm just going to ink around the edge of my card with the Stormy Sky Distress Stain. And I'm also going to use a little bit of the aged mahogany to add a little bit of red kind of into the card. Kind of ties it all together. And I will come back with the finished product. And there you have the completed card. I pulled out some vintage laces that I had, adhered it to the back of the heart, and there it is. So, have fun, play with wax, be creative, and have a great day.